Hi everyone. So it's International Women's Day yet again. 46 years of International Women's Day. We've been celebrating International Women's Day since 1975, if I do the math correctly. So yeah, 46 years. And do I think it has impacted women's issues? At the very least, the fact that we celebrate or I should say commemorate International Women's Day every year, at least it almost gives permission. It creates safe spaces for us to talk about women's issues. You know what I mean? I don't know if the day itself is a tool to battle the issues, but what I think it does is allow for women to be highlighted. It allows for additional representation for women from all walks of life, to be able to speak on their lived experiences, as opposed to, people speaking over them. It's always important for us to allow space for the people for whom we actually advocate. Even as women, it's important for us to understand that some women experience more privilege than others. And as a result, we have to understand our privilege and where we fit in the spectrum, and allow women who may need a platform even more than we do to speak. Leave room for their voices to be heard. So I think that's what's really important about International Women's Day. The fact that it creates a space, hopefully a safe space, for women to have important conversations, to continue to have important conversations, and for those conversations to be centered at least for a day. The most challenging thing I've overcome, maybe not necessarily a challenge, but what I will say is the most purposeful, the most deliberate choice I've made growing into my womanhood is to walk in my power and claim my power, claim space, understand my beauty, both the external and the internal. And the external is important, especially as it pertains to representation. We live in a space where sexism is real, the patriarchy is real, misogyny is real, misogynoir is real, and existing in black womanhood is to decide, to choose to be joyful, to choose to live in your truth as a Black woman is revolutionary in itself, is resistance in itself, because there are so many spaces that would prefer us to be silent, that would prefer us to be erased, that would prefer us to be unseen, internationally and right here in Trinidad and Tobago. Sometimes we don't like to talk about it in terms of, the politics of womanhood, the politics of Black womanhood here in Trinidad and Tobago, the fact that right here in Trinidad and Tobago, our bodies or skin or complexion or voices or hair is still policed. So for me, existing in this body, in this personhood, and being proud and being purposeful about it and being deliberate, and being loud about it. I use the term Jamet discourse all the time, and people probably wonder exactly what that means. And for me, this is part of that, because we like to put women in boxes. And when we hear the term Jamet, sometimes we think is, our wassiness. And maybe that's part of it. There's a certain source, there's a certain fire. But the Jamets within our carnival framework, within our framework of resistance and rebellion, is very, very important in terms of what those women represented to the cultural framework and the political framework that is Trinidad and Tobago. So to choose to embrace that energy has been very, very important for me. To be able to stand on the backs of my very, very strong lineage, being American woman, American descendant, and what the women within the American community represent, to choose to walk in my power and walk in my beauty. That is what that means for me. To make that choice every single day is really, really important. And my advice to younger women would be to choose every single day to live deliberately and to create moments of joy. You have to choose it. Otherwise, life will beat you over the head and tell you who you're supposed to be. And that's not enough. It really isn't. That's no way to live. Work-life balance within, just generally, for me as a creative, my work is my life as a creative. So for me, in terms of what that struggle has been, is to find moments of stillness and to allow myself to observe, to allow myself to just be sometimes and not feel as though you just always need to be doing something, need to be creating, etc., etc. And I know there are a lot of women who struggle with that work-life balance. I may not necessarily be the best person to speak on it because I am not a wife, I'm not a mother. And I know that with those responsibilities come a whole other slew of considerations in terms of work-life balance, particularly now within this COVID framework, which piggybacks onto the next question in terms of, women who they're saying have been forced back into the home because of COVID. Couple things. I mean, there are a couple things happening within the COVID pandemic framework, which is truly concerning. What it has done is really emphasized and exposed how toxic capitalist ideologies are and how rooted in patriarchy capitalist ideologies are. Most of the isms, racism, sexism, classism, the phobias, xenophobia, etc., are all rooted in capitalist ideologies. One cannot stand without the other. You need both. You need all of those toxic ideologies stand on the back of capitalism. And until we start to deconstruct capitalist ideologies, we will continue to see things that women are being forced back into the home during a pandemic because we're not holding capitalist ideologies or patriarchal constructs accountable. We're not holding men accountable. We as women, we as a society have to hold men accountable. Why is it women are being forced back into the home? These old ideals of women as being solely homemaker, etc. That it's okay for women to have to give up themselves or aspects of themselves for the family framework to survive. That could never, that can't be fair. And we have to question why that is. And in order to question that, we have to face some really tough realities, harsh realities, have some tough conversations as a society. This goes beyond just women having conversations, because women can't have conversations in silos and we expect, things to be fixed. We can't do it on our own. You know what I mean? And this is where accountability comes into play. Even within the COVID pandemic, we've seen the pandemic within the pandemic, which is that women have, there's been such a rise in gender-based violence, and I don't think that is an accident. The pressurization, the pressure cooker situation that has been COVID-19 has forced a lot of ugly to the fore. And until we start holding ourselves as a society accountable for the roles that we have all played in perpetuating a lot of stereotypes and a lot of toxic ideas and behavior, you know, particularly too, in terms of how we raise our children, how we deconstruct gender-based stereotypes from in utero, you know, within the school system, etc., we're not going to get anywhere. So, you know, that's my whole perspective in terms of COVID-19 existing within this pandemic, the panini, the Pythagoras theorem, whatever P word you want to use at this point in time, existing within that emotional, mental, and physical space, because to me, COVID is all of those things, has become all of those things, and where women fit in the midst of all of that. You know, where we fit career-wise, where we fit within the society, gender-based violence, all those kinds of things. So, you know, it's about accountability. It is really, really about accountability. My name is Abeo Jackson, modern day millennial Jamet, and together with Soroptimist International Esperance, I challenge you to walk in your truth, walk in your beauty, walk in your power. Choose. Be deliberate in how you live. Be deliberate in the choices that you make. And don't let anybody pin you into a box in terms of who you should be and what you should be. You choose. Be deliberate.